Hello guys, good afternoon. So this is the recording for session number 16. So it's gonna be available for both groups, group A and group B. All right, so what do you need for this session? You need to complete the previous session, which is session number 15, about the restoration period in the 18th century. There are a couple of materials that you needed to explore. And yep, so we're gonna start with this. What we are going to cover for today's session, we're going to do three things. The first one is I'm going to show you how is this lesson structure. So what are the materials you need to go and check first, and what are some of the consecutive materials you need to follow. The second thing that I'm going to show you is how to, well, the development of the course, the content. And then the third thing we're going to do is I'm going to explain you how you're going to complete the activity in the Miro collaborative board for today's, due to this section, that is session number 16. All right, great. So let me just share my screen, guys, so you get familiar with how the lesson actually looks like. So the first thing you gotta do is you gotta go to the campus, right? Let me just move a couple of things over here. Great. So this is the session number 15, which is from previous session. And this is the content for today's lesson. It's session number 16, March 10, March 11 for group B. Modest proposal in satire. That's the proposal for today's topic. We're going to analyze the satirical aspect of this literary piece by Jonathan Swift, Modest Proposal. And yeah, we're gonna kind of like create, understand, like first understand, then comprehend, and then we're going to create some elements related to satire, if you're not familiar with it. All right, so what are some of the steps you gotta follow? The first thing that you gotta do is you got to go to the suggested reading. I recommend you to read Jonathan Swift part, which is page number 2. If you're asking, what is this document? Is this a different document from the previous one? It is not. It is actually from this document that I show you like previous session with all of the authors we're going to explore during this theme. And the first proposal is Jonathan Swift. And so for today's session, I recommend you to read only this part, page number 2, which is only one page. So you know who this guy is and who, what is the background of the person that is writing the piece that we're analyzing today. All right, great. Let's go back. And let's see in this part. The second thing that I recommend you to do is you're gonna have this video first. You're going to have the video over here, this that I'm recording right now. And after that, we're going to have a preview of the topic. So by the time you go to the preview, you are going to watch, you have already watched this video. You know what to do, all right? But the preview part, what you're going to do is you're going to watch a short film that is an adaptation, a visual adaptation of the Modest Proposal that we are already exploring in this video. So if you don't watch the video, it's gonna be like kind of like off, and you're not gonna understand it. So you need to watch this video first. Asynchronic. I'm sorry, this is a recorded class. This is an asynchronic. I need to modify this. What is satire? That will be the next element for today's session. You're going to learn a little bit more or through this video what satire is. But we're going to cover some aspects of it. And then you're going to find an example of what satire actually looks like. And then you're going to have the practice section, which I recommend you to go to the mirror section. And then later in this video, I'm going to explain you what you're going to do with this link. Okay. All right, so this is what you actually need to do for today's session. Let me just change my screen. Let me share that. Yeah, hopefully I'm sharing the right screen. Yes. All right, so today's session 16, one more time, modest proposal and satire. We're going to cover the restoration history, Jonathan Swift, modest proposal, and satire. All right, four elements that we are going to cover in this session. The first one is we're going to kind of highlight some review question. It's important you have read the previous material, so you kind of like feel involved in the conversation right now. Even we have conversation, but still, it's a kind of interaction. The restoration period, this is actually how it looks like. Very presidential, I would say. Very overdramatic. Um, so some of the questions that I would like to ask you, and I would like you to answer to yourself is, what has been restored? Why are we calling this period the restoration period? Because in order to call it restoration, something needs to be restored. What was that thing that was restored during this 18th century in Great Britain? Think about it, read about it. Um, Another question that I want you to like reflect on is where the Charles II spent much of his exile, and how this affect the English court. And the third question that I would like, this is some knowledge that you probably acquired from reading the materials and exploring the different elements from previous session. If you haven't explored and you have the chance, so you know what we're talking about here, all right? Why did Parliament push for James II to abdicate the throne? So those are like questions that you need to think about, like from previous one. Okay, great. We have a religious strife in this period of the 18th century in Great Britain. Recapitalization would be, first of all, Christian missionaries begin converting Anglo-Saxons in the British Isles circa 597. All right. Catholicism eventually becomes the official religion of England. And we already explored this from previous session. We have the different tribes, but also the influence of Catholicism and religion influenced a lot to the way it was England. However, Henry the Eighth breaks with Catholic. They have a breakup. They got divorced, and they break up with the Catholic Church. Um, so in this part, we kind of like mentioned in the readings this part, six wife debacle, and establish Anglican Church. And we pretty much talk about some of the Anglican representatives in this period of the Anglican Church. So for a period of time, England was mostly Catholic, but then because of this guy Henry VIII, um, it moved to a church that is called the Anglican Church. Bloody Mary returns to England and to Catholicism a couple of years later. So we're moving in here from Catholicism, Anglicanism, and it varied from kingdom to from king or queen, all right, in the period also. Wait, so the question is, are we Anglican at this point, or are we Catholic in England? Elizabeth I reestablished Anglicanism. Remember Elizabeth I, we explore some of the sonnets here. Elizabeth I reestablishes the Anglicanism as the official religion of England in the 1555, 58, I'm sorry. So England is predominantly Protestant, a Protestant country, and pursues anti-Catholic policies at this point. Act of settlement war with Catholic France actually happened because of this, because England, because of Elizabeth I, moved from Because in here, like, I want you like not to get confused, but England actually moved from paganism or different tribes and kind of like practices, religious practices, very variable. And then he moved to Christianism, and then he moved to Anglicanism, and then he moved back to Christianism with Bloody Mary, but then he moved back with Elizabeth first to Anglican. So you have the 1707, England, Scotland, and Wales unite as Great Britain. Right? So we have England, Scotland, and Wales unite as Great Britain. Who was missing? Ireland, Northern Ireland in this part. When Henry VIII turned England into a Protestant Anglican country, most of Ireland adhered to their Catholic faith. Several English monarchs attempted to force the Irish to convert, but Ireland remains predominantly Catholic. So it was a dispute that they have. So you have because the only condition it was because of England being Anglican, and then Ireland being Catholic, right? So they have like this dispute. So the English who took over Irish land treated their tenants crudely, and the Irish had no recourse as they had neither power nor money on their side. So what they have to do? So that was a little bit of history of religious impact. And actually, religion plays a predominant role in politics and everything. Jonathan Swift, what happens with this guy? So it's not Taylor Swift's relative. It's just a random guy here. But not so random though. We have we have to enter to Jonathan Swift to understand a little bit more about this guy. Jonathan Swift was born 1667 and he died in 1745. He was an Anglican priest. He was a satirist. He was a political writer. Swift ends up uniquely in between the two societies, English and Irish. All right. On the English side, he was born to English parents, lived in Surrey, England, as a secretary to a retired English diplomat. He involved in British politics and then he became an Anglican priest. On the Irish side, one Irish parent that was born in Dublin, Ireland, attended Trinity College in Dublin, appointed dean of St. Patrick's Cathedral in Dublin. Um, he fell exile after having lived in England for so long, but it allowed him to recognize the abhorrent English attitude toward the Irish. So you have one side that is English and one side that is Irish. And he's an Anglican, but some of the relatives are Catholic, and he lived in both sides, so he knows how Irish people are treated by English people, right? So he has the two perspectives in here. Though Swift writing lashes out against the English treatment of the Irish through his satires. Remember, I told you he's a satirist. A Modest Proposal, that is the piece that we're going to evaluate today, is one of the most famous satires ever written and succeeded in drawing attention to the issues that was the issues that were happening during this period. So some of the historical background that we're going to have in here is Jonathan Swift writes in response to the impoverishment of the people of Ireland in the late 1720s. Ireland had been subject to English control for almost 500 years. While Scotland united with England in 1707, Ireland was excluded from the Union. Ireland had experienced years of poor crops and lacked trade opportunities, so the populace lived in poverty. Beggars and starvation children were common sight. So that was the daily thing: beggars and starving children all over the street of Irish land, which is like you know, the relation between Ireland and Great Britain or England, it was like very complicated during this period. Because Roman Catholicism, as we were mentioning before, was the most common religion in Ireland. Large families were the norm, resulting in added stress to the country's limited resources. Okay, so I don't know. It happens. You have like, this is statistics, guys. Usually Catholic families, they tend to have a lot of children, like a lot. See the example here is of how many aunts and uncles. I'm sorry, ankles. Only two ankles, but uncles do you have? All right. So it was the opposite to the Anglican thing. Another method for persuasive writing, and this is something that we need to explore, it's the satire, and something that it was used for Jonathan Swift is satire. It's what is satire? It's a literary work that uses irony, humor, and fallacy to point out problems and criticize the people who are causing them. So the three elements that satire uses are irony, humor, and fallacy. But you may wonder, you know what humor is, right? You may wonder what irony is. It's the opposite of what you expect to happen, right? That's, for example, in Spanish, we have the expression of, que irónico, que, you know, and then you can fill the gap in there. The fallacy, it's a mistaken belief or a failure of reasoning that makes an argument invalid. All right? Es esta falacia, es una mentira o una verdad medias que hace que tu argumento caiga o tu razón se pierda por el hecho de que no está bien documentado o no está en lo correcto. O se hacen generalizaciones o se hacen denigraciones y hay un montón de tipos de falacias, que tal vez posiblemente más adelante podamos explorar. El elemento satire, entonces, entendemos satire as the literary work that uses irony, humor, and fallacy. For what purpose? To point out problems and criticize the people who are causing them. Y entendimos entonces que era irony y una fallacy. Satire. Webster Dictionary defines satire as a way of using humor to show that someone or something is foolish, weak, bad, etc. Humor that shows the wickedness or bad qualities of a person, government, society, etc. All right. So there you have it. How satire is used. It's essentially making fun of something to bring attention to a bigger issue or to bring light to how stupid something really is. Satire can be expressed in many forms, including comics, movies, TV shows, songs, games, and much more. So examples of satire you can find, it's usually, you're gonna find them in pop culture. And pop culture means popular culture. Like pop music means popular music. That is the music that is popular at the moment. Some example of well-known media that is based around the satire is The Daily Show with Jon Stewart, South Park, Saturday Night Live, Mad TV, Weird Al, Brave New World, and I don't know if you know some other examples. Actually, there is an activity in the mirror section for this. We're going to have this literary focus is the verbal irony. What is a verbal irony? Writers cannot depend on tone of voice to convey sarcasm. So they often use to make it they use irony to make their point. For example, it will be most beneficial to students, athletes, if they are allowed to coast through school. After all, why take up precious speed in the brains with math or social studies when they have a whole playbook to memorize? Getting a college degree is overkill when you already know how to protect a quarterback, shoot free throws, and pitch a shutout. Yeah, so pretty much that is essentially what satirical verbal irony is. All right? Is the writer being sarcastic? How can you tell that this writer is being sarcastic in this statement? Okay, because for example, if you read this line, it says, "After all, why take up precious space in their brains with math or social studies?" All right, it's overkill when you college degrees, overkill when you already know how to practice, right? Hold on, guys. 30 minutos. Ya llego. Ay, 15 minutos. Chat. Yeah, I'm sorry, guys. I'm sorry for that. So today's my birthday. Yeah, so they were inviting me for something here in the office. Yeah, anyways. All right, so that is verbal irony. I was telling you that it's getting a college. It's the point of saying, why bother anyway? Why? Yeah. Okay, explain what you think satire might be, why satire might be an effective tool for social change. For example, Jonathan Swift used modest proposal as a satire, as an element to bring up the injustices against Irish people committed by England. All right, so you're going to solve this in Miro. I'm going to explain you later. Modest proposal by Jonathan Swift. Please, in the Miro, you're going to define modest or proposal or alms, prodigious, parish, then commodity or flay. All right. So there's going to be a section for that, and I'm going to explain you later. The suggested reading, and this is just suggestion, guys, because I mean, probably you can have the audiobook on YouTube, but we're not going to cover this in the class. But if you want to know how it actually looks the modest proposal, you can go and read it on Google it. If you decide to read it, or in any reading, think about Swift using irony or the elements of literary elements and over exaggeration to get the reaction. How is this person using irony? How is this person using satire to get to a reaction from the reader, from the audience? Think about what is real purpose. What is the real purpose of this? What is behind, what was behind of the content of the letters? Watch for his use of logos, pathos, and ethos. Ethos, pathos, and logos son what is it in Spanish? Son recursos implementados por Cícero que son utilizados en el discurso. Por ejemplo, una persona o un político cuando hace un discurso, a veces se centra en uno de los tres. Es logos, la alusión a las lógicas a través de las estadísticas. Por ejemplo, cuando la gente te dice el 80%, según el estudio de las no sé qué, el 80% de la población salvadoreña es bla, 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 bla. O un tercio de la población salvadoreña es tal, tal, tal. That's logos. Pathos is basically to the emotion. Cuando esa alusión a las emociones, un discurso, una redacción, cuando decís, por ejemplo, no vemos la pobreza que hay en tal lugar, o miren la historia de esta niña, no queremos que les pase, no queremos que nos suceda esto a nuestros hijos, no nos vemos, entonces juegan con tus emociones, ¿ok? O aluden a tus emociones, a ese lado de pathos, right? En ethos se centra más en la persona, en la credibilidad de la persona. Entonces haces esta alusión a quién es la persona que está ahí. Por ejemplo, ¿quién lo dice? En un discurso, si yo vengo y te doy una charla sobre tal cosa y te digo soy especialista con tantos años de maestría, entonces yo aludo a mi credibilidad, yo aludo a mi experiencia. ¿Ok? Entonces, eso con respecto al discurso. Esto se utiliza mucho en public speaking, también en redacción puedes hacer alusión a ello. Y lo que hacía Jonathan Swift hacía mucha alusión, no tanto a las estadísticas, pero quizás al pathos, ¿right? cuál era o quién era el hitos. Por ejemplo, era una persona que tenía la solvencia para decir, yo soy inglés, pero entonces también soy Irish, right? Tengo esas dos, he vivido en los dos lugares. Parte de mi familia es anglicana, parte de mi familia es católica. Entonces yo puedo ver the bigger picture, de alguna forma. O yo lo he sufrido, yo he vivido en carne propia. Luego, las emociones, miren las personas que están sufriendo, cuántos mendigos, cuántos niños están aquí. ¿Okay? No lo hace un tono formal, lo hace un tono satírico, una forma de burla. Right? This proposal by Jonathan Swift faced such a situation in the late 70s, 20s, when starvation was widespread in Ireland. Starvation, hambruna, hambre. Irish harvests have been poor for years. Farmers couldn't pay the rent demanded by the English landlords. Beggars and starving child filled the streets. England's policy kept the Irish poor. A modest proposal upheld by the misery in the Ireland, Jonathan Swift set out to make the English more responsive to the neighbor's suffering. So he wrote a pamphlet, a shocking satire that offered an outrageous solution to the problem of famine. You might wonder, what are pamphlets? Pamphlets were very popular during the 1700s. Means used by writers to spread ideas. It's not like Twitter, right, or YouTube right now, but the pamphlets were the social media here. Because of Ireland's economic issues, pamphlets had circulated with ideas to alleviate the problem. However, these ideas were dismissed. It's just blah, 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 and no action. Because Swift felt that logical situation to the problem, logical would be logos, logical situation to the problems were being dismissed without consideration. He wrote a satirical essay called A Modest Proposal, una propuesta modesta. Incluso en el título hay un tono satírico. Te puede escribir una propuesta modesta, which parodies the style of real pamphlets. Swift wanted to change the way that people thought about the issues, especially those who were apathetic or unresponsive to the situation. So pretty much that is what you need to know about this topic, guys. So I'm going to, I want you to think about what is the situation of Jonathan Swift and the evolution of Great Britain and the interaction of Irish people and the interaction, because this is the first Irish writer that we explore. Most of the previous were from London or different part of Sussex or different part of England. But at this point, Jonathan Swift, we're exploring an Irish perspective. Okay, so I want you to keep in mind that the interaction that we have with the Great Britain at this point, Wales, England. What was the other one? Scotland. That was the Scottish people. And then we have the Irish. Okay, so I want you to keep that in mind. I also want you to kind of like digest the idea of what satire is, what irony is, and verbal irony actually is. Let me just share the mirror section so you get familiar with it. Okay, so please, guys, complete this section if you haven't. Thank you for those of you. This is from Group A, but Group B is pretty much the same. Please, if you haven't, do it. In the activity section, that is for today's lesson, you need to hold on. I have the instructions here. Copy. The instructions are three. You have 3 tasks for today's section. The first one is you're going to copy a sticky note and paste it below to register your answer. For example, what you're going to do, this is the first task. It says why you think satire might be an effective tool for social change. Why do you consider is an effective tool for social exchange? Remember that we're working in pairs, so you discuss it through WhatsApp, or you get organized through WhatsApp. You say, oh, you answer this, I answer the other one. I mean, you decide. So what you're going to do is you have this one. So I can perfectly, hold on, I can go to copy, and then I can do paste. Okay, it says copy, paste. All right, so in here, now I already copy and paste, and then I start. We think, for example, make it short. We think that satire helps because blah, blah, blah. All right, make it short. And then the other person, the other group, if you see already one over there, you paste it below. We think blah, 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 blah. How do I know that you completed? Who is this person that is writing? Who is the pair that is writing? So there's one thing when you click on here, and it's going to appear this. I want you to go to the tag section, which actually allows you to create a tag. And you can say, for example, I already have one that it says Pedro and Ana. Pedro en Ana fue mi tag para este post. Pero, por ejemplo, si tú eres Juan y Luisa, entonces le pones Juan en Luisa. Le puedes cambiar el color, por si quieres, por medida estética, básicamente. Y luego te va a aparecer aquí. Entonces, yo voy a saber cuál es la pareja que ha hecho eso. Y luego la otra siguiente persona, pues, le pone Elisa y Camila. Y es en esta sección. ¿Ok? So, una vez que termines esta parte, perfectamente te vas a ir a la otra, que dice, define solo uno de todas las opciones que están ahí. Entonces tú mires, otra vez, control C, control copy, bueno, copy, paste. Entonces, no olvido, por favor, ponerle el tag con el nombre. A ese ya le puse Pablo y Betty. Y lo que hago es decidir, bueno, voy a definir solo uno. Y voy a definir ohms, por ejemplo. Ohms. 2 puntos. Bla, 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 bla. Okay. En la siguiente persona, no importa si se repiten, lo que podemos hacer es, porque hay muchas opciones, pero entre más nosotros exploremos un término, pues más lo aprendemos. Tratemos de tener diferentes fuentes. Por ejemplo, si ya veo que una persona utiliza un diccionario en particular, o utilizo otra fuente, o utilizo otro recurso. Y tampoco solo es copiar y pegar lo que el compañero hizo, ¿verdad? Tampoco voy a validar eso. Con el siguiente task, básicamente otra vez le doy copiar, o le pongo duplicar. Duplicar. Y luego, provide an example of satirical content. Y yo voy a poner uno de los shows, por ejemplo, duro, blandito. Me aseguro de ponerle la etiqueta con el nombre de la pareja. No importa que no estén, por ejemplo, que aquí haya Pedro y Ana, pero aquí haya otra pareja y aquí hay otra pareja. Siempre y cuando tú le vayas poniendo el tag, no importa el orden en que se vaya poniendo. Por favor, respetemos el orden de los compañeros y van haciéndolo para abajo. Van a tener todo el espacio del mundo. Y si no, pues se pueden mover, no hay ningún problema. Pero sí, les sugiero que lo hagan en línea. Okay. Voy a tener alrededor de 25 participaciones, 26 participaciones. Yo creo que sí hay espacio para eso. Y si no, pues lo movemos un poquito. All right, guys. No sé si tienen alguna pregunta y eso es todo lo que tienen que hacer. ¿Hasta cuándo tienen para realizar eso? Recuerden que es una semana lo que les doy de plazo. Entonces, tienen que estar listos si son del grupo A para el día martes, antes, 11:59, y para los del jueves, para los del grupo B sería el miércoles a las 11:59. Entonces, si no te has puesto el día con eso también, por favor, completalo con tus nombres, ¿verdad? Eso es todo, chicos. Les agradezco. Cuídense y pues estamos a la orden.